Hello everyone, I am Milton Quijada, reporter for Group 4. The structure of ATP and major class of macromolecule. Of ATP is a nucleoside triphosphate consisting of a nitrogenous base adenine, a ribose sugar, and three serially bonded phosphate groups. ATP is commonly referred to as the energy currency of the cell, as it provides readily releasable energy in the bond between the second and third phosphate groups. So the ATP is made up of molecule adenosine, which itself is made up of adenine and ribose sugar and three phosphate groups. It is soluble in water and has high energy content due to having two phospho-1 hydride bonds connecting the three phosphate groups. Here are some videos that can explain more about my report.
You all are aware about adenosine triphosphate, or simply ATP molecule. When we are dealing with the biochemical reactions, we always rely on this molecule for the purpose of energy, as it's also called the energy currency of the cell. So here in this video, we'll be discussing its structure first, then we'll try to understand why and how the ATP gives out the energy in biochemical reactions. As I have already termed this molecule as the energy currency of the cell, so all the reactions in our body rely on this molecule in order to drive the reactions. First of all, let's see the structure of ATP molecule. When we draw the structure of ATP molecule, we have nucleoside part first. That's adenine, nitrogenous base plus ribose sugar. So this forms the nucleoside part. Then to this nucleoside part, a triphosphate is attached. Three phosphates in a linear fashion, and final result comes out to be nucleotide, that's nucleoside bound to phosphates. So ATP molecule is basically the nucleotide molecule. To distinguish between nucleoside and nucleotide, have a look at this diagram. Nucleoside is a combination of nitrogenous base plus ribose sugar, while as the nucleotide is the combination of nitrogenous base plus ribose sugar plus phosphates attached to the molecule. So this is the molecular structure of ATP molecule. Plus we have also differentiated the nucleoside with nucleotide. Now let's see where from the ATP molecule releases energy and how it releases energy in the biochemical reactions. First of all, keep this thing in mind. It's not the whole ATP molecule which gives off the energy, but it's actually the bonds that release the energy. When we see the structure of ATP molecule, we have got three phosphates attached to the nucleoside. And there are three phosphoanhydride bonds between these molecules, but the phosphoanhydride bonds between beta and gamma phosphates delivers the energy in reactions. These phosphoanhydride bonds are very high energy bonds, and it's when the water molecule comes in and hydrolyzes the terminal phosphate, the bond is broken and we get the energy for cellular processes. So it is the ATP hydrolysis that gives the total energy. In that reaction we get inorganic phosphate also, plus ADP molecule along with the energy released from the bond. In the hydrolysis reaction, the ATP is hydrolyzed by water molecule, and in this reaction we get the products in the form of ADP plus we get terminal phosphate in the form of inorganic phosphate. And also we get the energy. And this energy comes from the bond which is broken between oxygen and phosphate. That's phosphoanhydride bond. If we go further, ADP molecule is further hydrolyzed for its second phosphate, releasing the energy again. We get the AMP that time. That's adenosine monophosphate, as its beta and gamma phosphates have been removed. Now getting back to the first reaction, we see in this reaction the ADP plus inorganic phosphate recycles back to ATP in the ADP-ATP cycle, which we have already discussed, the ATP-ADP cycle. The link slides in for that video. It must be noted that hydrolysis of phosphate groups in ATP is especially exergonic process because the resulting orthophosphate group is greatly stabilized by multiple resonance structures, making the products ADP and inorganic phosphate much lower in energy than the reactants. While making of ATP molecule from ADP plus inorganic phosphate, that time it's endergonic reaction. but at the end we get the total energy gain because the energy needed to break the bond in ATP is always lesser than the energy released by the molecule. And also remember, this ATP molecule is not a stable molecule and it always tends to kick off the terminal phosphate. The high negative charge density associated with three adjacent phosphate units of ATP also destabilizes the molecule, making it higher in energy. Hydrolysis relieves some of these electrostatic repulsions, liberating useful energy in the process by causing conformational changes in ATP structure. And that's why ATP molecule lose terminal phosphate on hydrolysis easily. So this is all about the structure of ATP molecule and how it releases energy and why it releases energy. I hope you.
Functions of ATP. ATP hydrolysis provides the energy needed for many essential processes in organisms and cells. These include extracellular signaling, DNA and RNA synthesis, purinergic signaling, synaptic signaling, active transport, and muscle contraction. These topics are not an exhaustive list but include some of the vital roles ATP performs. So the functions of ATP. ATP is the main carrier of energy that is used for all cellular activities. When ATP is hydrolyzed and converted into adenosine diphosphate, energy is released. The removal of one phosphate group releases 7.3 kilocalories per mole or 30.6 kilojoules per mole. Under standard conditions, this energy powers all reactions that takes place inside the cell. ADP can also be converted back into ATP so that the energy is available for the other cellular reactions. Here are some videos that can explain more about my report.
The structure and function of ATP. Adenosine triphosphate is an important molecule in the transfer of chemical energy within cells. It's often referred to as the energy currency of a cell, as it can pick up energy and transfer that energy to another chemical process. Cells produce ATP continuously, storing small amounts of it, but generally using it immediately. ATP is a nucleotide, as it contains a 5-carbon sugar, a nitrogenous base, and a string of 3 phosphate groups. Its nitrogenous base is adenine, which is also part of DNA and RNA molecules, and its 5-carbon sugar is ribose. Together, these are referred to as adenosine. 3 phosphates are attached to adenosine to form adenosine triphosphate, as you can see here. The squiggly line between phosphate group 2 and 3 is a high-energy bond. When this bond is broken during chemical reactions, ATP becomes ADP, or adenosine diphosphate, and a phosphate is released. The energy released is used by the cell for cellular functions. The ADP and phosphate can, with the help of energy from food, be resynthesized into ATP, as you can see here in this illustration. So this process is similar to a rechargeable battery. You use the battery, or ATP, to provide energy for something. The battery drains down, the ATP breaks down, you recharge the battery, and you eat food to recharge ATP. And that be the basics on the structure and function of ATP.
Major class of macromolecule. A macromolecule is a very large molecule important to biological processes such as a protein or nucleic acid. It is composed of 1,000 covalent bonded atoms. Many macromolecules are polymers of smaller molecules called monomers. Macromolecules are large molecules composed of thousands of covalently connected atoms. Here are some videos that can explain more about my report.
Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about macromolecules. Macromolecules are large structures that make up all living organisms. All macromolecules have small subunits called monomers, which bind together to form larger units called polymers. And there's 4 classes of macromolecules. They have carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and amino acids. and I'll talk about each of these in turn, starting with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the main fuel source for most living things, as well as a structural component for many plants. Monomers for carbohydrates are called monosaccharides. Saccharide means sugar, so monosaccharides, one sugar. These are simple sugars like glucose, fructose, and ribose. Then your polymers are called polysaccharides, and they are long chains of monomers or monosaccharides. There's storage carbohydrates like starch in plants and glycogen in animals for energy storage, and then structural like cellulose in plants and chitin in insects. Moving on to lipids. Lipids have a variety of functions in living organisms, and there's a lot of things lumped into the category of lipids because they're all hydrophobic. All right, some functions include energy storage, cell membrane formation, and steroid function. They have no real monomers. They're just they just are what they are. So fats include triglycerides and saturated and unsaturated fats. You also have phospholipids, which form the cellular membranes, and then steroids, which include all sex hormones, and all the steroids form from a cholesterol base, and all those are included in lipids, so it's pretty diverse. Then you have proteins. Proteins are involved in nearly all cellular functions and are a major part of all living organisms. Their monomers are called amino acids, and there are 20 different amino acids. And their polymers are called polypeptides. You bind amino acids together to get polypeptides. And the protein structure results from folding, which determines the function. And lastly, you have nucleic acids. Nucleic acids store, transmit, and express genetic information. So their monomers are called nucleotides, like adenine, guanine, and thymine. You may be familiar with these terms from studying DNA and RNA, and that's what their polymers are. They're called polynucleotides, and they're strands of DNA and RNA. Now you can watch this video about DNA and RNA for more information on that, and hopefully maybe I can take some time in the future and make individual videos for each of these macromolecules, because there's a lot more information I could include. So if I get around to that, I'll link those here. If not, well, sorry. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and share this video if it was helpful. Thanks. Catch you next time.
Macromolecules are polymers built from monomers. A polymer is a long molecule consisting of many similar building blocks. The small building block molecules are called monomers. 3 of the 4 classes of live organic molecules are polymers: carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids.
Welcome to Moo Math and Science and Macromolecules. You may also hear the term biomolecules to describe these large molecules. Cells in animals and most living organisms have 4 main macromolecules that help keep them alive and functioning properly. They are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. A macromolecule is a large molecule formed when elements and molecules bond together. Elements like hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphate join together to make up a macromolecule. Each macromolecule is unique and made up of many smaller molecules. Up first, carbohydrates. They're composed of 3 elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, in a 1:2:1 ratio. For example, take a look at glucose. Carbohydrates store energy and provide structural support. Examples of carbohydrates include sugars and starches, and yes, they are nice to eat. Carbohydrates provide quick energy for humans. Most lipids are macromolecules composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Some of them also contain nitrogen and phosphorus. Technically, a lipid is not a macromolecule, but in biochemistry it is grouped with them. Lipids are fats, waxes, phospholipids, and steroids. Lipids help make cell membranes and are great at storing energy. Proteins are large chains of amino acids. There are 20 amino acids used in your body. Your RNA carries instructions to the ribosome, which instructs the ribosome the correct order of the amino acids. These proteins carry out many jobs in the cell. Your body has hundreds of proteins. Some of them help with communications, others help with transportation. For example, the protein amylase, which is found in your saliva, helps break down food. Collagen is a protein that helps bind your skin together. Nucleic acids are long chains of nucleotides. They are composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphate. Examples include DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, which is ribonucleic acid. Nucleic acids are important because they contain important genetic information and help transfer this hereditary and genetic information. So in summary, macromolecules are large. There are 4 main macromolecules: lipids, proteins, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. Please subscribe and share.
Synthesis and breakdown of polymers. A dehydration reaction occurs when two monomers bond together through the loss of water molecule. Polymers are disassembled to monomers by hydrolysis, a reaction that is essentially to the reverse of the dehydration reaction. Here are a figure of dehydration reaction, synthesizing a polymer, and hydrolysis, breaking down a polymer. Diversity of polymers. Each cell has thousands of different macromolecules. Macromolecules vary among cells of an organism, vary more within a species, and vary even more between species. An immense variety of polymers can be built from a small set of monomers. And next is carbohydrates serves as fuel and building material. Carbohydrates include sugars and polymers of sugar. The simplest carbohydrates are monosaccharides and single sugars. Carbohydrates macromolecule are polysaccharides, polymers composed of many sugar building blocks. Sugar monosaccharides have molecular formulas that are usually multiples of CH20, glucose, C6, H12, O6 is the most common monosaccharide. Monosaccharides are classified by the location of carbonyl group as aldose or ketose. The number of carbons in the carbon skeleton. Here are the figure of aldoses, aldehyde sugars, and ketoses, ketone sugars. Trioses has 3 carbon sugars, pentoses has 5 carbon sugars, and hexoses has 6 carbon sugars. Here are some videos that can explain more about my report.
Polymers are macromolecules that consist of repeated small molecules. We're surrounded by polymers: plastic bags, packaging products,
pans, toothbrushes, cables, car wheels, plastic bottles,
clothes, insulating materials, bulletproof materials, shoes, windows, adhesives, pans, balloons, gums, glasses, phones, computers, umbrellas, toys,
and more are made mainly of polymers. For example, this molecule is ethylene, also known as ethene. When ethylene molecules link together, long-chained macromolecules of polyethylene or PE are formed. Polyethylene is mainly used in the production of packaging materials such as plastic bags, bottles, films and caps. This molecule is vinyl chloride. As you can see, it's just one atom different than ethylene, but when vinyl chloride molecules are joined together, the result is polyvinyl chloride, PVC, which is commonly used to make window frames and doors. Replacing only one atom causes the chemical and physical properties of the substance to be completely different. So as you can imagine, there are countless different types of polymers with different chemical and physical properties. Like PE and PVC, some polymers are formed by only one kind of molecule, whereas others are built up from 2 or more different kinds of molecules. For example, this is PET. It's formed by reacting terephthalic acid and ethylene glycol, and is mostly used to make plastic bottles. Besides artificial polymers, there are also natural polymers such as silk, wool, DNA, and rubber. If we take a look at a single chain of a DNA molecule, we can see that it consists of repeated molecules of sugar, phosphate, and a base. Polymers are divided into thermoset and thermoplastic polymers according to how they behave at different temperatures. While thermoset polymers can't be softened and melted with heat, thermoplastics can be melted and reused. So thermoplastic polymers are easily recycled, whereas the recycling of thermoset polymers is difficult and expensive. So mainly thermoplastic polymers are recycled. Both polymer types undergo combustion at high temperatures. In the real world, polymers and polymer products are made by different companies. Polymers are commonly supplied as solid small particles called pellets. These pellets are then heated and processed by methods such as molding and blowing. When they cool down, the products are ready for use.